You know, I'm so glad this next gentleman is here because I respect him deeply, knowing about the intricacies of why people vote as they vote and what's going on here. Frank Luntz, the pollster extraordinaire. Here's where you can help me or riddle me this, Batman. Mitt Romney looks great on paper. A great selling point is Scott McNeely, business titan point. He has all the assets, but he doesn't have it here, I guess, right?
He has it here. He has it in his heart, but that doesn't mean that he communicates it that way. Mitt Romney is a brilliant numbers guy. He looks at the evidence and he knows how to make the right conclusions. In some ways, he's the most qualified candidate of the entire field running because he understands exactly what America needs.
So why can't he close the deal?
Because being a good president is not necessarily the same as being a good candidate. We are now emotionally driven. We're afraid of the future. We're anxious. We're angry in some cases. And Romney is much more clear-headed. He makes rational decisions. You don't see the emotion. You don't see the passion in him because he's clinical. And that clinical approach does not necessarily lend itself to being a great candidate in a Republican primary when what they want you to do is just bash, bash, bash.
All right, we have Mitt Romney leading by a little bit more than he was before. I don't want to extrapolate too much of this because you know this stuff better than I do, but it goes back and forth. It's like crazy. But we did hear from the Ohio GOP chairman that there would be an automatic recount if it's around 1/4 to 1/2 of 1%. So regardless of whether these guys want it or not, it's going to happen.
Except based on what I see that's out there,
you don't think that's going to happen?
I think Romney will win by enough in Ohio to get beyond it. Although I will tell you something.
But can you, as a let's say that does happen, would Rick Santorum have a case say, I protest this?
He can still protest it. The issue actually is not who wins and loses these states. It's who wins the delegates. And when you take a look.
Well, on that count, win or lose, Mitt Romney's in better shape tonight.
Much better shape. And when you add what he's won tonight versus what he has won up to this point, you cannot make the case that Mitt Romney gets the nomination sewed up in the next few days or even few weeks.
What about going to the convention and not having the delegates he needs?
But who else could? I mean, you reach a point.
I know, but someone has to, right?
But you look at the numbers, and you have to be able to, all three candidates, Ron Paul, Rick Santorum, Newt Gingrich, have to have more delegates in total. And by the way, your set's falling apart here, just to
tell me about
point that out to you.
I missed it then.
They don't, we're not going there. They do not have the capability of getting enough delegates. That's the story of tonight.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand that. I understand they might not, but Romney might not. A question I raised with Sarah Palin is then, do they call an outsider? Could it be a Sarah Palin, a Chris Christie, or someone to pick up the baton? Now, when I raised it with Mitt Romney, he said, you know, no damn way. He didn't say that because Mormons don't talk like that. But no way, because we've all been working our Catistas off, and no, we're not.
And you look at the numbers, and that while that makes a great press story, and while that'll be good for every cable news channel, it's just not likely to happen.
Why?
The question that I'm looking at.
I'm a numbers guy.
Because
I look at these numbers.
And if
you don't know these numbers, do.
And you look,
actually you do, but go ahead.
And you look at the numbers, and Romney's getting 55 or 60% of the delegates, even if he's only getting 40% of the votes. And that's what matters more, is those delegates.
Why does that happen? Is it the congressional districts? If you win them, that's what happens?
Look at Virginia. There's only 2 candidates on the ballot, and so Mitt Romney just takes virtually everything, if not everything. A state like Ohio, where Romney may win by 1%, at most 2%. Because it's done by congressional district, Rick Santorum didn't even field a full slate of candidates. Romney.
So let's say that happens. It's almost split, Frank. Then the 66 delegates would apportion how?
They get apportioned by congressional district, and what happens in Ohio is if you win by just 1%, that's a much bigger margin in terms of how many delegates you win than just cutting it statewide. And that's what Romney has done in virtually every state. Where the delegates matter, he's been in there. When it's been a beauty contest, such as what we had about 3 weeks ago, that's where Santorum does well.
There are 10 contests tonight. I was looking at this. Romney wins for, so far, Santorum 3, Ohio's still up for grabs. What's going to be the headline tomorrow?
The headline is that Romney takes another small step towards the nomination. But you have to ask the question, is there anyone there who has the ability to deny him that nomination? And that's what I don't see right now. Does Romney have it wrapped up?
So you don't see a brokered convention where they say, look, you guys can't settle it? Because here's my theory. I think the longer these guys fight this out, the more they hate each other. And the less inclined one is to help the other.
Absolutely. And I know this from a personal perspective, knowing these 4 candidates. You are correct. But it's also, what do the voters think? And I think the bigger story from tonight is the increase in negative ratings for Mitt Romney among independent voters because this Republican contest goes on.
But what happened in prior contests where you had multiple candidates? Hillary and Obama were going at it.
But people like both of them.
They did.
I like that analogy because in that
What about
case,
92 then, the Bill Clinton race?
they were much more careful. Because Bill Clinton put it away so quickly. It
Then
didn't.
why did they field all these other candidates in the spring? Because they weren't sure he could win in November.
Because he had scandals about him, which Mitt Romney doesn't have. I think the 2008 comparison is the best. But both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, while they challenged each other, were not nearly as negative. The ads were not as negative. The debates were not as negative. And you had people who liked both candidates. They just liked one candidate.
So your final prediction is?
My final prediction is that Mitt Romney will be the Republican nominee. And this is where I go against my focus groups. I think that it is destructive to the Republican Party if this race continues. The focus groups I've done for Fox News has shown exactly the opposite. They want it to continue.
Very interesting, as you always are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Luntz. Another interesting fellow, Jody Vidal, was